Yo, what's up? It's your boy Muddy Professor. I know some of y'all out there probably thinking like, yo, what's up with that name? Um, it's a little play on words. I know you know the Nutty Professor, whatever. But I don't consider myself nutty. You know what I mean? But I come from the hood. You know what I'm saying? Like true story. I was born in Brooklyn. You know what I mean? I grew up like in Hook, all that, like in the hood, B. I grew up in the hood. So I come from the mud. So, But like since, a couple years ago, whatever, I've been cleaning up my act. Like true story, I have. I've been trying to change my life and clean it all up. So, I washed off a lot of that dirt and grime, but you know what happens when you mix that dirt and that water, you still a little muddy, you know what I mean? So that's me, you know what I mean? And then professor, like I try to teach a little something like a professor, but not really so much consider myself like a professor, you know what I mean? But more like somebody who professes, you know what I'm saying? Like professes a message or whatever. Like I got a message to say or whatever. So I'm professing that message. So I'm the professor of that message. So I'm the muddy professor, something like a hood prophet. You know what I mean? But yeah, so that's my thing or whatever. You know what I'm saying? I like to look at things in a different way. You know what I mean? And today I wanna speak on something about like what I've been thinking about. You know, is like the temptations of Jesus. Now mind y'all, excuse me, because like y'all can find this in the Bible, but I don't know the verses. I just know the story. You know what I'm saying? And I'm gonna paraphrase the story the way I understand it. So as I understand, Jesus after being blessed with the Holy Spirit from being baptized in the Jordan, mind you, right now I'm sitting right next to the Jordan. It's not actually a Jordan River, right? But it's called a Jordan Creek where I live at. Dead serious, yo. That's the Jordan Creek right there. That's the Jordan. So so Jesus, he got blessed. I mean, he got blessed with the Holy Spirit, and um, and then he went into the wilderness for 40 days. 40 days, he didn't eat nothing. Like he fasted. The Bible says. And that's when after that fast, that's when the devil came to him. And the devil tempted Jesus, all right, 3 times. The first time, like he had said something to Jesus about, oh, you hungry? Why don't you just turn these stones into bread? You know what I'm saying? Like, go ahead, turn those into bread, you be good. And Jesus replied with something like, oh, man doesn't live by bread alone, blah, 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 right? So that was like the first temptation, like Jesus didn't take, you know what I'm saying? Like turning something that's not food into food or whatever, something, you know, or whatever, right? Okay, so the next temptation, I think, like, eh, I don't remember exactly, like, but I know the devil took him to a high place, very high place, right? And then and then he was like, yo, toss yourself from here. And it said that like you can't even stumble your foot on it, something like without God coming to like rescue. You know what I'm saying? Like to like save you. And Jesus like, oh, that we shouldn't tempt God. Like we shouldn't do that or whatever. So that was like the second. I think it was like the second temptation or whatever. And then the third one was like he took him to another high place, and then he was like, look at, and he showed him all the kingdoms of the world, and he was like, this could all be yours if you bow down to me. And Jesus said, you should worship God and only God and whatever. So that was the third temptation. Now, to me, it's like a significant thing with that, right? Because like people consider Jesus to be God. You know what I'm saying? Like, and if not God, like at least a superhuman, somebody who's above the abilities that we have. You know what I'm saying? So even if you don't consider Jesus to be God, you have to at least, if you believe in the story somewhat, you have to at least say that he had some type of abilities that was beyond the abilities of an average human being, right? I say all that to say that a lot of times we see Jesus like in a higher light, which he is, but like in a higher like level where like certain things that relate to him don't relate to us. You know what I'm saying? Like how he could just just like not be tempted so easily, like just like wave off these temptations, and we can't in certain ways. And then you look at it too, like, oh, turning stones to bread. Like, who could do that? Or like the kingdoms of the world, or throwing yourself from a mountain. But I'm gonna relate this in my own story, right? I'm gonna tell you how that story relates 100% directly to my own life. All right. Now I have to say this: as a child, I grew up poor, in poverty. True story. You know, it was times when my family was homeless. You know what I'm saying? And this is real stuff. True story. You know what I mean? We had to live in like these welfare hotel shelter type, jump or whatever, back in the day. You know what I'm saying? Like this is really for real. We lived in them joints for years, and then we moved out and did whatever. But it's a long story or whatever. But we lived hard. You know what I'm saying? And true story, no lie. A lot of times I went to bed literally hungry. You know what I'm saying? But in the hood too, like when you don't get money, you kind of like consider starving, you know what I'm saying? Because like somebody who is getting money, they eating. Like that's the slang in the hood, right? Or at least when I was growing up, that's how it was. Like if you was getting money, you was eating. People would be like, yo, he eating. Cause he getting money. You know what I'm saying? So the opposite of not getting money, you starving. You out here starving. You know what I'm saying? So that's how we used to, that was our slang. But literally we was starving too sometimes, you know what I mean? But we was starving on some money tip, right? I'm giving you a background of how Jesus was in the wilderness starving, and I was in the concrete jungle starving, right? I was starving. So the devil came to Jesus and tempted Jesus and said, yo, you hungry? Why don't you turn these stones into bread? All right, let me tell you something, right? Back in the day, right? I was about, I want to say like 14 when I started selling crack. I started selling weed before that, but about 14 years old, I started selling crack. This is true story, right? And back in the day, crack rocks. We used to have, these little crack rocks of 20s or 10s or whatever, dimes and whatnot. You know what I'm saying? And when you sell them, or since they was crack rocks, our slang was they was stones. All right, so that was our stones, like whatever. And crackheads come or whatever. Everybody pull their stones out, or whatever. You know what I mean? So we had our stones, and then check this: slang for money is bread, right? Yo, you got that bread? Got that bread? Right? So we was literally, this is what we was doing. We was turning stones into bread. That's what I did. That's what I did. 14 years old, little kid, you know what I'm saying? Whatever, little teenager out in the streets. This is what I was doing. You know what I'm saying? I was turning stones into bread. I failed that test when it come down to it, right? Okay, so the devil took Jesus to a high place, and he was like, throw yourself from here and see if, God's gonna save you or whatever, right? All right, so 12 years old is the first time I ever used drugs. Like ever, you know what I'm saying? Smoke weed and shit. Excuse my language. First time I ever smoked weed. And I went to a high place. Now weed, you know what I mean? A lot of times, real talk, like I never really heard nobody ODing off of weed, but it is true, it's a gateway drug. It leads to other things. It led to other things for me. I eventually was taking ecstasy, acid, mushrooms, PCP. It was times when I sniffed coke. You know what I'm saying? I did all that, right? So I went to these high places and threw myself, right? Because it's good chance that I could have died OD off of these drugs or any type, like just ruin my life altogether. So in a way, like, killing myself. You know what I'm saying? So I would throw myself in these high places. and think to myself like, ain't nothing gonna happen to me. Like, how many of us really think like that, right? How many times we take drugs and we take too much or whatever? We almost OD, or we know a friend that OD, somebody that died. I know a lot of people that died from using drugs. I still had used drugs, right? So I was taking myself to these high places and throwing myself, knowing, feel like testing God that He's gonna catch me. You know what I'm saying? When I fall. This is a true story, man. I ain't lying, right? And I'm not talking on the religious stuff. I'm talking on some for real stuff. Like me just living a crazy life, living a wild life. You know what I'm saying? I was taking myself high. I was getting high, going to these high places and throwing myself. You know what I mean? And seeing if God catch me. You know what I'm saying? And by the grace of God, like He did catch me every time. And I'm not gonna keep playing with Him. I'm not gonna keep messing around. You know what I mean? But that's just the second test that I failed. That Jesus, like, he easily bypassed that. How many of y'all could say in the same way? You know what I'm saying? That y'all failed that test. You know what I mean? Two tests, right? So what's the other test? He also took Jesus and He showed him all the world, like the world, and promised him kingdoms, and He abide. Now for me, I was always broke, right? So to me, right, getting money, that was like having the world, right? Like you hear the songs, whose world is this? The world is yours, right? You know, if I ruled the world. I ain't saying nothing against Nas. I love Nas, you know, and I ain't saying he was talking bad. I'm just saying like this is how our mentality is, especially when we was hustling, getting that money. We feel like we run the world, and I know I did. I don't know how many of y'all hustlers out there feel the same way. You know what I mean? You only getting a couple dollars, a little bit of change, but you feel like you rule the world. Why? Because you coming from nothing, having nothing, and being around people who have nothing. You know what I'm saying? And now you got a little bit of something. So to you, you run in the world, you rule the world. You know what I'm saying? And what do I have to do to get that? I had to bow. I had to bow down. You know what I'm saying? To that bad guy. You know what I mean? And I don't mean literally bow down, but like I bow down my morals. I bow down my values. I bow down, you know, like certain things about myself that make me a good person or whatever. I bowed all those things down in exchange to try to rule the world. You know what I mean? But it's all the fantasy. And Jesus saw past all that. He saw past all the temporary. Because in the end, what everything I'm talking about is temporary. Everything. You know what I'm saying? Like that little bit of change you get from hustling and all that, right? That's all temporary. They ain't no old hustlers. Either you dead or in jail, or you retired and went off to become, you know, something else or whatever. You know, there's one in a billion Jay-Z's out there. You know what I'm saying? You know, and even him, you know, he left the game, knew what time it was. Like there ain't no old hustlers like that, fam. You know what I'm saying? And so that's a temporary gain. Getting high, that's a temporary fix. You know what I'm saying? To the problems or to feeling bad. Cause I know about it, man. It been times I would always like. It been times, man. I felt so bad. I'd do anything to come back up. And that's sex. That's drugs. That's whatever, man. You know what I'm saying? So that's real stuff. Like, but I'm just speaking on that. So more or less, yo, that's what I'm talking about. I'm like I know a lot of us out there, we look at Jesus or even hear the word Jesus, we be like, oh, I ain't trying to hear all that or whatever. But you could learn a lot, man, if you just look at the story in a different way. You see it from a different pair of eyes, man. You could see yourself in these stories, and you could see in how you yourself could try to be a better person. You know what I'm saying? Like, I know at this point in my life, I don't never want to try to turn stones to bread no more. In that way or no way. You know what I'm saying? I want to do what I need to do to get this bread and get this money because, but in the right way. I feel like energies, I'm going to make another video at some point talking on the energies and stuff, but that's a real thing to me. And I feel like that's very deep and very real. And yeah, like I'm explaining that. That's why I won't go back to trying to turn stones into bread. You know what I mean? And and you know going to those high places and throwing myself off, or you know what I'm saying, bowing down to try to rule the world. Like my world is right here where I am everywhere. You know what I'm saying? That's my world. That's the world I'm a rule. You know what I'm saying? As far as how I feel and how I perceive things and all that. Like I ain't gonna let I ain't gonna try to do nothing else. Nobody else world, nobody else, situation, none of that. I'm worried about me first. You know what I mean? Something else Jesus said, like about taking a plank out your eye before you talk about the speck of dust in your brother's eye. And that's more or less what I'm trying to do in my own life is try to take that plank out of my eye. And bruh, that's a big plank, man. You know what I'm saying? That joint got splinters and all that. You know what I mean? I gotta take all that stuff out. You know what I mean? And it's a process, a long time, man. So before I start looking at everybody else and how everybody else living and speaking on that, I'm gonna speak on me and how I'm living. You know what I'm saying? And I'm gonna just share that with anybody who's interested in knowing. It's just a little bit of knowledge. You know what I mean? I ain't telling you go pick up a Bible or nothing, but it ain't gonna hurt. You know what I'm saying? And it definitely won't hurt to try to read it and understand it in a way that you can understand. You know what I'm saying? In a way that you could get it. Because it's for you. It's for your life. It ain't nobody else's life. So nobody else could try to tell you how to understand it or whatever. Pray on it, do whatever you gotta do, you know what I'm saying? But don't take somebody else's word for what they reading, because that's their word. You know what I'm saying? That's how they understand it. You know what I mean? And they got their own life that they gotta live. You know what I mean? You got your own life. So try to. I'm not saying get your own, because the Bible say don't lean on your own understanding. But I'm gonna say this, right? If I don't lean on my understanding, am I gonna lean on your own understanding? Your own understanding? I'm gonna lean on that? No, I ain't doing that. You know what I'm saying? So if anything, I'm gonna pray on it and just see how it come to me, how the understanding come to me after that. But yeah. That's what I got to say, yo. It's the Muddy Professor. I'm out. One.